this episode of Screen Time, it's a beautiful day in the neighbourhood when you live in the Heights. She paints, she draws, she loves, she dances, and her name is Tove. Plus, a modern masterpiece of comic book cinema is coming to Netflix. And an Aussie classic gets a brand new Blu-ray release. Welcome to Screen Time. My name's Ant, and on this program we're going to be looking at new movies that are currently in cinemas, both mainstream and art house titles, as well as delving into cinema's past to look at a series of classics that you might just have missed the first time around. And we'll also let you know just where you can find these films, whether on big screens, streaming services, or physical media. So, here goes.
I've been saving up all my pennies in my piggy bank for this day.
This is going to be an emotional roller coaster. The odds are against you.
But there's a chance, right?
I love music. I love stage musicals. I love movie musicals. I'm always looking forward to experiencing stories that are told through song and dance. It's especially valuable in the case of theatre adaptations when I've never seen the show in question live on stage, which is why I'm so eagerly awaiting the imminent arrival of Dear Evan Hansen. As for Steven Spielberg's update of West Side Story, well, let's just say it'll be interesting to find out how it fares, not just in comparison to the beloved 1961 movie, but also to the coincidentally similar story that's being reviewed as we speak. But I digress. What kind of a movie is In the Heights? Well, it's a tale told in flashback by a man who's passing on his history and life lessons to a bunch of littlies living together with him on what appears to be a tropical paradise. The tale is one of youthful dreams and seeming dead ends, of fighting against fear and bridging the generation gap, all set against the backdrop of New York City's Washington Heights. It's a film with movement and energy, colour and diversity, cinematic imagination. In short, I think it's pretty good, but the stage version that I caught some years ago was great. So, what accounts for the difference in my reaction? It may be that ultimately, while it's a pleasant and positive experience, one that doesn't completely ignore the grim realities that its characters have to battle against, In the Heights, when looked at a second time, removed from the unique electricity of a live performance, just doesn't have that strong of a script. The central characters are all sympathetic and relatable, with fairly strong storylines given to them, but their tales are told in a way that I found fitfully rather than consistently engaging, which results in a film that feels long at more than 2 hours. Maybe another issue is that director John M. Chu's camera style feels just a tad too smooth at times, and his staging both a bit messy as well as distractingly artificial, not always achieving an ideal balance of realism and fantasy. Also, one or two of the performances give off the sense of promising amateurs rather than stars who have arrived. Still, the winning aspects of In the Heights far outweigh its shortfalls. In the end, there's more than enough good times, vivid atmosphere, youthful passion, poignant drama, and musical flow to make this an easy recommendation. In the Heights gets a screen time rating of 7.
Det är länge sedan jag har sett dig måla.
Jag tycker det är svårt just nu.
Det där är inte konst.
Jag tror att fröken Jansson ledde mig vid näsan.
Jag tror att livet är ett underbart äventyr. Man ska utforska alla dess kringelikrokar.
I love world cinema. I love film festivals. I love diving into the excitement of an independent film with a fresh and edgy vision to be found. So the biographical drama Tove was high on my list to see, especially as it was Finland's 2020 submission for Best International Film at the Academy Awards. It did fail to make the 15-title shortlist, however, and to be honest, I can understand the Oscar voters passing it over. The true tale of popular and renowned author, novelist, painter, illustrator, and comic strip author Tove Jansson, while nicely textured and engagingly performed throughout, never quite blossoms into a truly satisfying or impressive entry in the genre of struggling artist stories. The script's focus is mainly on Tove's personal relationships, principally with other women at a time post-World War II when lesbianism had yet to find true social acceptance, as she strove to locate her niche in the artistic community and establish her own name independently of her famous father. This woman's efforts to succeed in her chosen field, as well as in finding somebody to love, are reasonably engrossing and quite touching, but ultimately can't match up to a truly striking film like Maudie, which told a somewhat comparable artist's life story in a far more impactful manner. While the very recent French film Two of Us, which was shortlisted for the 2020 Academy Awards plus nominated for a Golden Globe, is significantly superior to Tove as a tale of women in love. Perhaps Tove Jansson's is another life that needed the scope of a television miniseries to capture the impact of her work and the importance of her art to so many people. Because ultimately, this is a decent film which doesn't approach greatness. So, a screen time rating of 6 for Tove.
Arthur, does it help to have someone to talk to?
My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face. She told me I had a purpose to bring laughter and joy to the world. Hey, stop them! Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Originally, I didn't want to see this film. In fact, I didn't really want it to even exist. Another portrayal of the Joker? How could anyone else measure up to, let alone compete with, what Heath Ledger gave the world just 13 years ago? Why would anybody even want to try? At least there had been a nice, long 19-year gap between Tim Burton's Batman and Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. Adding to my skepticism and unease was the realization that Joker would have a director in common with The Hangover, one of my least favourite popular comedies of all time. Wasn't this a formula for failure, a recipe for disaster? If so, the recipe has gone spectacularly wrong in the best way possible. Joker is a remarkable achievement in cinema, a truly tension-filled affair, a chilling and compelling experience. From the moment that this film accomplished what ought to have been impossible for a major studio American movie derived from a superhero franchise, namely winning the top prize of Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival from a jury led by Argentinian art house auteur Lucrecia Martel, the world was put on notice that Joker promised to be something different from the norm. And before anyone who's seen the film tries to correct me on this by pointing out the debt that is clearly owed to both Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, remember that Martin Scorsese's films are very much out of the ordinary themselves. Because Joker exists outside the normal, expected boundaries for comic book cinema, it simply blows apart my usual resistance and draws a superhero skeptic like me completely and helplessly into its dark, dank vision of tragic delusion, inexorable alienation, and tangible rage that seems to spread through an entire city like a virus, almost as if the majority of Gotham's citizens wanted it that way. The unforgettable anguish and uncomfortable physicality of Joaquin Phoenix in the title role is enough to make you want to track down the guy just to make sure that he's okay. This performance and the movie that spawned it are intense and uncompromising enough to reignite the age-old question: when can a performer be said to have gone too far for their art? For that matter, how far should a filmmaker venture into dangerous waters in pursuit of a thrilling end product before we demand that they pull back in the name of responsibility? In a number of ways, I speak from a position of privilege with regard to not only Joker, but every film I review on Screen Time. Though I was completely absorbed, absolutely exhilarated, and enormously impressed by Joker, I can also acknowledge a certain ambivalence about my own reaction. Do I think that the seductive power of Joker's nightmare vision makes it a dangerous work of art? Possibly. But because the movie is so stunningly artful, I choose to consider that element of danger to be an enormous strength, rather than something to condemn the filmmakers for. Joker deserved every bit of its success, and should be an example to follow, though just how many will choose to follow in its footsteps, or come close to matching it, remains to be seen. I give it a screen time rating of 9.
But now I realize it's a comedy.
You just
It was a new kind of war for a new century. Farmers defending their land against regiments of foreign troops who wondered what they were dying for. It was a taste of things to come.
Harry Harbord Morant, Lieutenant Bushveld Carbineers.
I love Aussie films. I love delving into classics of the past. So, what makes a classic movie? Must it wrestle with timeless and challenging themes? Should it serve up electric drama and men on horseback with impressive moustaches, fighting a war in stunning South Australian locations, starring Jack Thompson, Brian Brown, Charles Bud Tingwell, not as Gramps, even the one and only Alf from Home and Away? Stone the Flamin' Crows, how much more awesome do you want? But seriously, Breaker Morant is undoubtedly a classic, not to mention an absolute must for all Aussie cinema buffs, especially Adelaideans, since it was a product of our very own film corporation, with the rural mining town of Burra standing in for Pretoria, South Africa, and interestingly not the last major movie to do so. Ayers House on North Terrace is even utilised for a number of scenes, but locations are just the icing on the cake for a true story of the court-martial of the title character, soldier and horsebreaker Lieutenant Harry Morant, and his 2 co-accused on a charge of unlawfully executing captured prisoners during the Second Boer War. Most of Breaker Morant is spent inside a courtroom, but the interior scenes are brilliantly realised in every sense, from scripting and performance to direction, editing and cinematography, that the film never becomes a static experience. Crucially, the court scenes are interspersed with exterior shots that are often breathtaking, and which complicate the drama by depicting past events that may or may not have occurred the way the defendants, or indeed the witnesses for the prosecution, claim they did. It's a hugely intelligent depiction of a complex, ghastly, but true piece of history, and although it takes the view that Morant and his co-accused were martyrs who became unjust victims of the corruption brought about by British empire building, and director Bruce Beresford, along with his co-screenwriters adapting a stage play, uses all the means at his disposal to manipulate a viewer into thinking and feeling that way too, Breaker Morant is so effective a piece of cinema that I basically go along with it from beginning to end. If only all movie manipulation could be this well done. An enthusiastic screen time rating of 8 for Breaker Morant.
And soldiers like myself and these men here have had to carry them out, however damned reluctantly.